Technology and Livelihood Education. Agriculture and Fishery Arts for Grade 7. Our topic is Housing Requirement and Feeding Management for Poultry and Livestock. Week 7, Part 1. The following are the content standard and performance standard for this lesson. Here are the learning competency and objectives of this lesson. Review of the previous lesson. What do you call it? A disc shaped that can be positioned in the center of the pig barn so that pigs can access feed from all directions. What do you call it? The area found below the roost bar in a chicken coop. It helps by collecting the manure and keeping it contained so that it is easy to remove after a chicken has shed its droppings. Content area vocabulary. Feed is a food grown or developed for livestock or poultry. It encompasses any materials that are processed, semi-processed, or raw that are intended to be fed directly to farm animals. This helps meet their nutrient requirements for sustaining life and promoting growth, production, and reproduction. Feed additives are ingredients added to the basic mixed feed, typically used in very small quantities and requiring careful handling and mixing. While they do not provide nutritional value, they enhance the quality and effectiveness of the feed. A feed ingredient is a component of the feed mixture that may or may not have nutritional value for the animal's diet. Examples include plant, animal, or aquatic ingredients, as well as organic or inorganic substances. Swill feeding refers to the practice of feeding pigs with leftover food scraps or waste food, often from human meals or food processing. These scraps may include various types of food waste, such as vegetables, grains, meat, dairy products, and other edible food remnants. Is not recommended and is generally considered unsafe for several reasons, like disease transmission, and it can carry harmful bacteria, viruses, and parasites. A feed supplement is either a single feed ingredient or a mixture of ingredients designed to address deficiencies in a diet or improve the overall nutritional balance and performance of the feed. Broods refer to the young birds produced during a single hatching, such as ducks, chickens, and quails. Gestation is the process in which farm animals are conceived and develop in the womb. Parturition is the act of giving birth to offspring. Layering refers to chickens specifically raised for egg production. Compare and share. What observations can you make about each set of pictures? What do you notice about their shelters? How does their type of housing influence their feeding behavior? Housing requirement for poultry and livestock. The following are the types of animal housing. Animal housing is any kind of shelter provided to animals for physiological security and protection. The shed type of housing. In this type of housing, the animals can move freely in and out of the housing area and paddock. Feeding and watering troughs, mineral feeders and grain bunks are located on concrete pads at the center or along the side of the shed. The pen barn type or stall barns. In this type of housing, each animal is confined in a stall. Each stall is provided with individual feeding and watering trough. Confined housing. Group pens with the same sizes are constructed with ample area for animals to exercise. Bamboo or wooden slats serve as fences of the feeding trough, giving enough space for animals to insert their heads. This will prevent the animals from stepping or trampling the grasses. Water devices should be placed in an area where spilled water will not mess up the pen. Characteristics of shelter for goat and sheep according to the Philippine Agricultural Engineering Standard. The first characteristic is, it shall conform to the land use plan of the area. Second, it shall be accessible to service roads, water supply, and electric lines. Then, it shall be well drained and well ventilated. Next is, it shall be constructed in an east-west orientation. And finally, it shall be situated where the prevailing winds will not carry odors to the farmhouse. Table 1 shows the minimum floor space requirements for goats and sheep for intensive production. Table 2 shows the minimum floor space requirements for pregnant and lactating doe or ewe. The structural requirement. For slatted floor, slats should be 70 mm to 10 mm wide, 25 mm 30 thick, laid with slot space of 10 mm to 25 mm. Staircase type and elevated type of slatted flooring should be constructed for goats. The minimum step width shall be 80 mm and the vertical distance shall be 300 mm. For galvanized welded mesh slatted floor, the diameter of the wire shall be 5 mm and the mesh spacing shall be 20 mm. The slatted floor shall be at least 1 m above the ground. The floor underneath the slatted floor should be either concrete or rammed earth floor with slopes. The concrete floor shall have a minimum slope of 2% and the earth floor shall have a minimum slope of 4%. For concrete floor, it shall be skid resistant and well drained. The floor slope should be 2% to 4%. The roof should be adequate to provide shelter against rain and intense heat. For shed-type housing, the roof shall slope towards the back of the shed. The height of the front eave shall be at least 2 m and the height of the rear eave shall be at least 1.5 m. For adequate ventilation, roof slope shall not be less than 25%. If the roofing is made of indigenous materials, the minimum roof slope shall be 58%. The wall shall be adequate enough against rain. A clearance of 150 mm to 300 mm between floor to wall and wall to beam. This creates an adequate air circulation and lower draft. Functional requirement for pen barn type housing. The standard height of the pen wall and gate shall not be less than 1.2 m, but it may vary according to breed. Pen walls and gates shall be made of cyclone wire, metal bars, or wooden slats. For metal bars and wooden slats, the size should be 50 to 100 mm. If the galvanized wall or woven mesh, the maximum mesh dimension shall be 100 mm x 10 mm and the post shall be made up of galvanized steel of 70 mm dm. It shall not have sharp edges. The surface shall not be painted or applied with wood preservatives to prevent illness or death. The brooder box shall be provided for newly born kids/lambs. One side shall be open and the dimension of the box shall be 500 mm x 450 mm x 350 mm. The pen for the kids/lambs shall have at least one side slatted to permit air circulation. Each pen shall be provided with hay racks, feed and water troughs. The goat housing. The first type of intensive system housing is the deep litter system. It is widely used by successful poultry raisers. Known for other term as chicken coop. The floor of the chicken house with beddings or good litter materials. A good litter material for your poultry farm could be 6 straw, sawdust, or leaves to the depth of 2 to 3 inches. There is easy access to feed, water, and egg collection. The following are the housing requirements for cattle. The following are the characteristics of shelter for dairy cattle, according to the Philippine Agricultural Engineering Standard. The characteristics are: it shall conform to the land use plan of the area. Then, it shall be accessible to service roads, water supply, and electric lines. It shall be well drained and well ventilated. It shall be constructed in an east-west orientation. And finally, it shall be situated where the prevailing winds will not carry odors to the farmhouse. Table 3 shows the space requirement for cattle. Structural requirement. The floor. The minimum floor thickness shall be 76 mm with 2 to 4% slope towards the drainage. Concrete floors should be skid resistant. Earthen floors shall have 4 to 7%. The roof. Adequate roofing materials shall be provided to protect the cattle against rain and sunlight. The roof slope shall not be less than 25%. If the roofing is made of indigenous materials, it should have a slope of 58%. The minimum height of the top of the roof shall be 2.5 m from the floor. The pen wall. This must be preferably made of galvanized iron piped schedule. The diameter of vertical and horizontal railing members of the pen wall shall be 50 mm and 75 mm of the post. The maximum center-to-center spacing between vertical railing members shall be 1.5 m and for horizontal railing members shall be 0.4 m. The maximum center-to-center spacing between posts shall be 3 m and shall be embedded in a concrete pedestal with a minimum depth of 0.4 m. Each post shall be provided with 0.15 m concrete protectors. The pen shall be 1.2 meter to 1.5 meter high. Sharp edges must be avoided to avoid injury to the animals. Paints should be avoided that may intoxicate the cattle. Pens. Maternity pen shall be provided for cows that are 2 months away from parturition. The pen shall be bedded with straw or any suitable bedding materials during calving. Rice hull is more preferred than rice straw. It shall be equipped with a feeding and watering facility. It should shelter 20 to 25 mature cows. Pen calves up to 3 months. Calves under 3 months should be placed in individual stalls for easier feeding and for closer observation. The minimum height of the pen shall be 1.2 m and it shall be elevated at least 0.3 m from the ground. Solid partition should be provided to prevent calves from licking each other to avoid hairball formation of the underdeveloped rumen of the calf. Pen wall and floor shall be made of metal pipes or bars. The slat space clearance in the pen wall shall be 115 mm to 130 mm. The pen should be equipped with feeding and watering facilities for calves with 3 months to 1 year old. For heifer, milking and dry cow, each group of animals shall be penned separately as they differ in movement, feeding system, and management system. The pen shall be equipped with feeding and watering facilities. Here is an example of calf weaning pen. Calf pens. The calf rearing pens. The following are the housing requirements for poultry. The agricultural structures, housing for poultry. The structural requirement. For the location. It should be within the approved land use plan of the local government and compliant with national regulations. It should have an accessible supply of adequate power, potable water, and a good service road. The location should not be adjacent to any body of water or wetlands. It should not be prone to flooding. It should not be near slaughterhouse facilities and other chicken facilities. It should be adjacent to hazards such as physical, chemical, and microbiological. The farm layout. It should have a suitable area for storage of feed, carcass destruction, waste management, and workers' area. It should incorporate ventilation and ease of cleaning. It should have perimeter fences to prevent contact between livestock and stray chickens. It shall have properly installed electrical conduits. It should include a layout for emergency procedures. The animal housing. The chickens should be sheltered in a suitable structure, appropriate for intended uses, with sufficient shelter and ventilation. It should have a strategic layout for the chicken husbandry activities. The premises should be kept clean at all times to prevent disease outbreak and occurrence. Animal housing. The building should be designed using materials that should not cause any injury or hazard, provide convenience, can be easily cleaned, can be easily replaced, create efficient stock management, enhance biosecurity. It should have an effective drainage system. Chickens' feeding and drinking trough. It should be provided with sufficient floor space or size suitable for their age, body weight, and size for feeding and drinking. The feeding and drinking equipment should conform with the standards for each species. Pen should be designed and constructed to prevent them from escaping. It should be free from protruding objects or structures that may injure them and farm operators and farm workers. The housing design should provide proper ventilation to maintain a comfortable environment. Animal buildings should have adequate lighting to ensure that chickens can be thoroughly inspected. Electrical installations and wirings should be protected and not accessible to chickens. The fence, posts, and gates should be effectively designed to prevent entry of stray animals, escape or injury of the chickens. The farm should have storage facilities. It should be always kept clean. It should have adequate ventilation, adequate protection from moisture and vermin-proof. First in first out principles should be observed. Minimum requirements for free-range chicken production flock size should not exceed 5,000 birds per house, with a maximum of 20,000 birds per site. The indoor stocking density should not exceed the following recommendations. In conclusion, illustrating the housing requirements for poultry and livestock based on industry standards is critical not only for ensuring animal welfare but also for optimizing productivity, meeting regulatory requirements, minimizing environmental impacts, and promoting economic viability. It's an essential practice for modern farming operations that want to remain competitive, sustainable, and responsible in the eyes of both regulators and consumers.
A time to remember. This is Teacher Mylene. Thank you for watching and please subscribe to my YouTube channel.